When it comes to your performance goals, what's holding you back?
Have you ever felt like, I always wanted to perform, but I wonder if I'm good enough? My family encouraged me to pursue something more practical, or I don't have the skills or training to be competitive. I just want to feel more confident. Or even, I wonder if it's too late for me.
If any of that resonates with you, you might be dealing with a severe case of imposter syndrome. Today, we're sharing our experiences with imposter syndrome and the 2 things successful people do to break through it and pursue their dreams. Hi, I'm Cynthia Cortman-Westphal, a Broadway music director, conductor, voice coach, and tenured professor in the musical theater department at the University of Michigan.
And I'm Chelsea Wilson, a performer turned voice teacher to Broadway stars and vocal coach on Broadway productions like The Phantom of the Opera, School of Rock, and more.
Here on the Broadway Vocal Coach podcast, you can expect real talk about the business, practical advice, and constant encouragement.
We believe there's space for every artist in this industry. All you need is the right support. So consider us your 2-woman hype team. Welcome to the Broadway Vocal Coach podcast, where we help musical theater performers get unstuck and take the next step in their careers. If the world of social media and self-promotion makes you want to run and hide, number 1, we feel you, and number 2, help is just around the corner. On September 20th, we are thrilled to be welcoming TV and stage actor Kevin Chamberlain for a public masterclass on social media for actors. With over 10 million TikTok followers and 800,000 Instagram followers, Kevin knows a thing or two about how to leverage social media as a working actor. Kevin Chamberlain is known for his theater roles such as Horton in Seussical and Uncle Fester in The Addams Family. For his theater work, he received 3 Tony Awards and 3 Drama Desk Award nominations. Chamberlain starred as Bertram Winkle in the Disney Channel original series sitcom Jessie from 2011 to 2015, among many other TV credits. Usually, we keep our special guest masterclass series closed to just our BVC studio members, but we really want you to get all the tips, tricks, and insider info from this class. So on this special occasion, join us. Register now for September 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. It's only $25 to register, and spots are going fast. All the details are in the show notes. We'll see you there. We are back, Cynthia.
We're back! Season 2.
We have found our way back to our podcasting mics. I had to dig mine out of a box after my cross-country move and remember how to assemble it. But we're back. We did it.
Cross-country move with the baby.
Yeah, cross-country
and
move
a dog.
with a toddler and a dog. Oh, gosh. It's been a summer. How was your summer? You've been busy.
It's been busy. Lots of summer camps, a production of Beautiful in Sacramento, which was fun, and lots of purging of my house, purging closets, purging drawers. That's been my side hustle this summer, is purging.
That is so restorative. We did a lot of that before the move. We moved from Washington State to North Carolina this summer, and I was so adamant about 6 months prior, we're going to tackle one room every weekend and just go through, get rid of stuff, because I was not about to move junk. We, of course, still moved junk. I have unloaded boxes and I'm like, do I need this? We can throw it away. But I tried my best.
I know. I'm very much of the uncluttered space, uncluttered mind. They kind of go hand in hand for me. So I know when my house starts getting cluttered, that means my mind is getting cluttered as well.
I feel the same way. Visual clutter literally makes me anxious. I'm like, I have to clear off the surfaces. I have to clear the counters. It's been a real stress these last few weeks of kind of getting settled into our new place. So I feel you. Wow. Okay. We need to be texting. This is what we need to be texting about, Cynthia. I want to see the before and afters of your closet spaces. I want to see what you're doing. Well, I'm really excited to be back because we have exciting things in store for season 2. We're so excited to be back and to be welcoming fantastic guests and reopen the conversation with you, our listeners. This has been such a fun project for us, and we're pumped for season 2. And we think this is a really perfect episode to start season 2 because we've recently polled our Instagram community about this topic in a variety of ways. And I would say the majority of folks who follow us or in our community have experienced this feeling of imposter syndrome. Whether they experience it currently, they've experienced it before. It is a major challenge for a lot of performers. And it makes perfect sense to me. What do you think about this imposter syndrome? How might you define imposter syndrome, Cynthia?
Psychologists would define imposter syndrome as the belief that you are undeserving of your achievements and that the high esteem in which you are, in fact, generally held. So I think for musical theater performers, it shows up a little bit differently. To me, it shows up as that really nagging feeling of self doubt or fear of being exposed as a fraud, even though you are truly talented and accomplished in your craft.
For the two of us, we are no strangers to imposter syndrome. We have absolutely felt this ourselves. And we've witnessed it in our colleagues. We've identified it in our community members, in our clients. This is just a real thing that we deal with in our industry, especially when we're dealing with something that feels kind of nebulous and subjective, like talent or singing ability or performance skills, right? Sometimes it's hard to
Yeah.
quantify those things.
I think one of the reasons imposter syndrome shows up so much in our field, particularly, is that we are constantly put into new situations with new people and new jobs, new auditions. And so you never can get to a point where these people really know me. They know my work. I've shown to be talented or a good worker or someone you can rely on. It's like every time you step into a room, it feels like new people and a new job possibility. Or even when you do get cast and you step into that rehearsal space for the first time, it's new people again. It's that feeling of like, oh no, is this group of people going to discover that I'm a fraud? I've been doing okay so far, but this is the new group that's going to figure it out. So we're just constantly put into these new positions, which I think is very different than most other jobs.
That's a really great point. Other jobs have like a linear career path and you climb
Mhm.
the ladder and you know people for years and years at a time. That's a really great point. So I'm curious, Cynthia, me and you both have stories to share about our experience with imposter syndrome. And then I want to talk about two things that successful people do to navigate imposter syndrome. How about you go first? You've got a really pretty excellent story of feeling this way early on in your career. Will you share it with us?
Yeah, and I just want to make a point to say I'm going to share a very early story because it was a bit of a make or break. It felt in the moment like maybe this isn't the right business for me and I haven't even really gotten started yet. So it was sort of a tipping point for me in that either I break through this moment or I give it all up. I just want to be clear that I have since had hundreds and hundreds of feelings of imposter syndrome. Since then, I could share many, many anecdotes, including, very recently. So I'm not sure it's something that ever fully goes away, at least for me. But I'm going to share a really early one, which was I got the opportunity to sub on a Broadway show. So this would be my very first Broadway show. And the way things worked back then is you would usually sit next to the player in the Broadway pit. You would watch them play their book, and you would then get to observe the conductor. And that's how you would learn the show so that when it was your turn to play, you had a sense of how the show was going to go. You would get a copy of the book that you could practice at home. But especially back then, this was back in the 90s. So back then, we didn't have video. We didn't have, you couldn't be sent home with the video on Dropbox that you can watch of the conductor conducting or of the player playing. I had like a cassette tape of the player playing the music that I could practice with, but nothing that I could watch the conductor with. And this particular show is Miss Saigon, which is, if you know that show, 100% music. Once that show starts, you don't take your hands off the keyboard for 2.5 hours. So that alone was very scary because at least if there's a book scene, you can, you play your song, you stop, you can page ahead, look at what's coming, make sure you know what you're doing. But Miss Saigon is like, once you start, you don't get to stop. So I really wanted to make sure I knew the show inside and out. So I started watching the book, sitting next to the player. I watched for 4 times. On the fourth time, as I was, before the show started, I'm settling in, ready to watch my fourth time. The conductor walks past me and looks at me with this just look of, you got to be kidding me, and said, if you have to watch the book this many times, you don't have any business playing this book. And I just remember turning beet red. I didn't know what to say. I don't think I said anything. I don't remember saying anything. And I remember just kind of being sick to my stomach the whole rest of that fourth show, because I did sit there for the rest of the show knowing that he thought I was completely unqualified. I had no business being there. And I went home that night. I just cried. And I really kind of internalized that, like, maybe this is not the field for me. Maybe I'm not good enough to be here. Maybe I really don't have any business doing this. And thankfully, I woke up the next morning really mad. And I thought, no, wait, I know I can do this. I know I can. I just need to know the show better. I knew for myself, it almost needed to be memorized, that I needed to have that book so well learned that I could be looking at the conductor as much as I needed to. So I ended up going to TKTS and buying a bunch of tickets to the show. And I purposely got tickets that were kind of in the back of the balcony and off to the side so I wouldn't annoy people. But I would sit there with my score in my lap, and I had this fancy little light up pen that the tip of the pen lit up so I could just follow along with the music while I was listening, and mostly listening to the show. I mean, at that point, I didn't need to watch the show. I needed to watch the music along with hearing the show. And it was the only way I felt like I could do it. And I had a view of the conductor from above. But obviously, the conductor couldn't see where I was and didn't know I was watching it a whole bunch more times. So that's what I did. I just hid and watched the show more, and got to the point where I felt really confident. And so when I did finally go in to play, I was so ready. I was like, bring it. You think I'm not ready for this? I am totally ready for this. And I walked in completely nervous, but with a ton of confidence, because I had the knowledge that I felt I needed to do a good job. It still makes me a little bit sick to my stomach when I think of that moment. When he said that to me, it felt like such a kick in the gut. All these years later.
I think my least favorite feeling in the world is feeling like I'm getting in trouble. Side note, I have an experience when I was in 5th grade, my PE teacher making a comment to me, and I got in trouble. And it has lasted with me my whole life. So if that were a higher stakes moment in my life, the tipping point of my career, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done. The fact that you said, I'm not going to take myself out of the running here. I'm actually just going to do what I know I need to do to be prepared for this opportunity, to be prepared for this make or break job that's going to help me get my foot in the door in this industry. It's really incredible. It's really incredible. But ooh, yeah, that feeling. We all know that feeling. It's just that sink in your stomach, you know?
I know you had a similar feeling when you showed up to college for the first time.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What an education, my friends, is going to musical theater school. I grew up kind of all over. I lived in Connecticut as a little kid. I spent most of my growing up years in Georgia until I was about 15. And then when I was 15, my family and I moved to a small town in southern Utah. And we had a great theater department at my high school. But, we're kind of all out west in this small town in southern Utah. I didn't have a lot of inroads to professional theater. I didn't know about summer programs. I didn't know about a lot of things. And somehow, amazingly, I found my way accepted into the musical theater program at the University of Michigan. And I showed up on that first day, and I remember the classroom at the music school, showing up with my classmates to go to Brent Wagner's Musical Theater 101 class. And before class even started, I'm in a room full of capital T theater kids. These kids have done the summer camps. These kids are from New York. These kids have seen multiple Broadway shows. Some of them have been in a Broadway show. I had been to New York once. It was when I was in 8th grade. I didn't retain anything from that trip, So I show up and I realize, oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know anything. And there were words being thrown around that I totally didn't recognize. And one that stuck with me was Sondheim. And I thought to myself, what's a Sondheim? What is this Sondheim everyone keeps talking about? I don't know anything about what this Sondheim is. Little did I know that Stephen Sondheim is the most influential and important musical theater composer of the entire, 20th century. I just didn't know. And thankfully for my 18-year-old self in that moment, I didn't really know what I didn't know. But it was like this feeling of like, I don't know if I belong here. I'm from a small town in southern Utah. I have not experienced anything that my classmates have experienced, like the upperclassmen have experienced. It's just like I found myself in a new place and I was afraid of being found out. I was being afraid, like, they're going to kick me out. When they realize I don't know what a Sondheim is, I'm going to get kicked out. I'm not going to be invited back to class. And that's just one little snippet. But I've had years and years of that feeling too. Like the more you learn, then you uncover things that you didn't know, and you continue to kind of go down this path. But the feeling for me that freshman year was I need to accept that I'm here. I have a spot in this program. I'm here to learn. I have 4 years ahead of me to learn what a Sondheim is and to learn that streets run east to west and avenues run north to south in Manhattan. Like I have time to learn these important things that all of a sudden I realized, wow, I didn't know these were important things to know, but apparently they are. And I'm so grateful that I made space to be like, okay, there are things I don't know, but I have time to learn them and I will take the opportunity to learn them. I'm not going to shut myself in and not experience what there is to learn and to be experienced over these next 4 years. Oh, man. But I'll tell you what, I was not prepared. I was not prepared for day one of Musical Theater 101. So this brings me to my next point, Cynthia, or our next point, which is how do we combat imposter syndrome? How do we move through it? How do we overcome it, or at least get on the other side of an experience of feeling imposter syndrome? And I feel like we can kind of narrow this down to 2 points. Cynthia, you want to take our first one? What is the first thing that successful people do to combat imposter syndrome?
Yeah. So the first thing, and this is very much came into play for my early story at Miss Saigon, is they learn and they practice. So what I often see happening with performers, especially, and I'll talk specifically about auditioning because I think, Chelsea, the second point we're going to make is maybe more applicable for when you're stepping into a new rehearsal process or stepping into a new show, things like that. But especially in an audition setting, learning and practicing, I feel so strongly about because I so often see performers using what I call the cross your fingers and hope for the best method, that they are walking into a room and just crossing their fingers and hoping today's going to be a good day. But if there isn't anything supporting that hope, you have nothing to sort of fall back on. And so what'll happen is if it's a rainy morning or if someone says something snarky to you right outside the audition room before you go in, or if you had a phone call that threw you right before you had to, when like life comes at you and something throws you, if you don't have that bedrock of knowledge and the practice that you did, the security in that practice, it's really easy for people to throw you, for situations to throw you. But I find that when you've done your homework and you know what you know. So Chelsea, you mentioned a minute ago, like, I didn't even know what I didn't know. So that's part of it. Part of it is getting enough knowledge, continuing to cultivate that knowledge in this field so that you start to feel like I do know what I know and I know what I don't know. So now I can continue to work towards learning what I need to learn. All of that is going to make it so much easier to walk in a room and then let those chips fall where they may. Because you never know what's going to happen in an audition room. But when you can walk into an audition room secure that you know what you're doing, that you've made a plan, that you've practiced it, that you have fully fleshed out your audition music, your character, your moment before, all of those things, it's going to be so much easier to walk in that room, know that you did your best, and let it go. And I also find when you walk into a room with that knowledge that you're ready and that you have this expectation that it's going to go well, it has this kind of self-confidence about it that is so appealing to see in a performer. And I feel like we see that when we're sitting behind a table. You can tell when someone walks in with the cross your fingers method, and you can tell when someone walks in really confident in what they know. And things still might happen. You never know what's going to happen in an audition, but there is a different vibe between the folks who have that security in their knowledge versus the ones who kind of prepped but didn't really know how to prep or what to prep. And so it comes back to that. I'm just going to hope it goes well. And we can tell that behind the table. There's something about that self-confidence that is just really, really appealing. So knowledge and learning and practicing to me are just the number one key to combating imposter syndrome.
I can hear some of our listeners saying, but Cynthia, I don't even know how to prepare. I don't know how to interpret a song. I don't know how to tackle my audition material so that I do feel confident, right? Like, what even is the process to feeling confident in my material, in my performance skills, et cetera, et cetera? And this is exactly why we created our online course, Broadway Vocal Coach Academy. And we are so excited for students to get their hands on this course. It's a self-guided online course. We take you through 7 different modules, 7 different themes and genres of musical theater, singing, and music. And all along the way, we are teaching you foundational skills for performing with confidence, for analyzing a song, for understanding character and context, and to be able to make choices as an actor. This is exactly why we made the course, so that folks can have a tool belt full of skills and practical ways to practice so that you can get that self-confidence. We're really excited about all of you getting your hands on this course if you haven't already.
We're so excited. And I feel like it's also great for people who've been around doing this for a while. I feel like it's very much like, for example, we were just talking about the purging of my closets and cupboards. When I purged the pantry in my kitchen, I found interesting sauces and interesting pastas and things that I forgot I bought that I was super excited to make a recipe with. And I just forgot. They got pushed to the back of the cupboard. I was only using the things out in front and I just forgot. And I feel like that's very similar to, a lot of folks may have gone through a really great musical theater program. They learned a lot of these foundational things. And then you get into real life and it starts to get busy and you're throwing together auditions all the time. And you sometimes start to forget some of that foundational stuff that got pushed to the back because things got busy and you just forgot about some of that work that you needed to be doing. And so I find this is also a really great refresher course and reminder for people who've even been in the business for a little while that it helps bring them back to, oh, that's right. This is how I used to analyze the song. This is how I used to prepare my moment before. This is how I used to prepare my breath plot and my lyrics. It can just kind of bring you back to some of those basics that maybe you've just kind of pushed to the back of the pantry and forgotten about for a little while.
You can use the code podcast15 to save 15% on your purchase of BVC Academy. Go to bwayvocalcoach.com/academy and enroll today. We can't wait to see you inside there. Not everyone gets to study musical theater for their college degree. Not everyone has access or the resources to work with top coaches and teachers. Not everyone is encouraged by their family to pursue their dreams of performing. Sometimes the realities of life derail us from our dreams, at least for a little while. Can you relate? That's why Cynthia and I have cooked up something really special for you. Whether your dream is community theater or Broadway, we are really excited to share with you our new self-guided online course, Broadway Vocal Coach Academy. Whether your goal is community theater or Broadway, develop the skills and confidence you need to go from the sidelines to the stage. Inside the BVC Academy course, you'll explore 7 different styles and genres of musical theater music, how to confidently analyze and act a song with ease, and you'll build your audition book full of songs you love that are performance ready. By the end of this go-at-your-own-pace online course, you'll have the foundations and techniques that you'd learn in a BFA musical theater program. And as a tenured faculty member at one of the top MT schools in the country, Cynthia knows a thing or two about that. Plus, you'll gain the confidence to implement your new skills at auditions, callbacks, and on stage. And with your purchase of BVC Academy, you'll get our How to Self-Tape mini course for free. Life is too short not to do what you love. Use the code PODCAST15 to save 15% on your purchase. That's PODCAST15. Enroll in BVC Academy today at bwayvocalcoach.com/academy. BVC.com/academy. Cynthia, we've got another point, our second point of what successful people do. I think this is a great follow-up to your first point of learning and practicing. The second thing I feel like successful people do to combat imposter syndrome is they don't tell themselves no, they go for it. So often in this business, we are told no by other people. If you are an auditioning actor, you've been told no. And if you haven't yet, you will be. The more auditions you go to, the more no's you're going to get. It's just a fact. It's just a numbers game. It's a reality. Rejection is part of the process. And that's fine. That's fine. Honestly, coming to terms and accepting that is part of being a professional or a semi-professional actor. But the thing that I think is so damaging is when actors tell themselves no, or in other words, they take themselves out of the running before they've even had an opportunity to go to the audition or go to the callback or send an email to the music director that they met at their friend's concert the night before. They just don't try. They just don't go for it. One of the most common ways that I see this come up with clients of ours or voice students of mine is folks come to me and they're chatting and they're like, they need some advice. And they're like, okay, well, there's these 2 auditions next week and I think I want to go to both, but one of them, it might overlap with this other thing that I might be doing this summer. And so I kind of feel like I'm not going to go. Or they might say like, well, I want to go to this audition, but the last time I auditioned for this director, he just cast this other girl who like kind of looked like me. So I just know if she shows up, she's going to get the job. So like, why would I even go? Like, I already know he's going to prefer somebody else over me, blah, 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 blah. And all I hear is people talking themselves out of going for it, of trying, of putting themselves out there. Because, and you know why? Do you know why we do this? It's because it saves us from some heartbreak. If we tell ourselves no, then the other person can't tell us no. This is self-sabotage at its finest. And let me tell you, my friends, I am so familiar with this feeling. I do this too. If I tell myself no, or if I take myself out of the running for a certain opportunity, then that other person that I'm more afraid of rejecting me, they don't even have the chance to reject me, right? But the thing I'll say to that is you're making a choice that is severely limiting your opportunities. Why would you make a choice that is going to severely limit your opportunities? Don't do it. Don't do it. Instead, go for it. My great uncle Stan, he is so wise, and he has this saying, and it's kind of like family lore. Don't make a decision before there's a decision to make. And I like to liken that in our business as don't take yourself out of the running before the opportunities are placed in front of you, right? My suggestion, my advice, go to the auditions, put yourself out there, do your best. You've done the work, you've prepared, and then see what you get back. Let yourself go for the opportunities because you truly never know what's going to happen. And there could be amazing opportunities waiting for you if you would only show up for them.
I love that. I love that so much. And even if things don't go to plan, let's say you say yes, you go for it, and something doesn't go quite right, then I'm going to direct you back to point number 1. Point number 1, learn and practice. If things don't go to plan, when you've been in that zone of learning and practicing, you're now going to have a sense of maybe why things didn't go to plan. You know what? I didn't have my moment before, or I didn't plan out my breaths in advance. And so I got nervous and I forgot where to breathe. When you start coming from that place of knowledge and learning and practicing, then you start saying yes to things. Then if other people start saying no, you might be able to go back and think, okay, here's what I can do more of. Here's what I can continue to hone. Here's what I can continue to improve upon. But if you continue on that cross your fingers, hope for the best method, and you take yourself out of the running, that is a double whammy of,
Yeah, it is. And the thing I'll say, as we're talking about here, these 2 points, learning and practicing and going for it, not taking yourself out of the running, they're not a guarantee that you're going to book every job, and they're also not a guarantee that the day you do show up after you've practiced and you've walked into the audition, that feeling of, oh my gosh, should I be here? I don't know. that feeling might still linger in some form. But the thing I'll say to that is, remember this, that courage is not the absence of fear, it's persevering through it. Being courageous and taking your next step is often doing so being confronted by your feelings, and the more you go after this and the more you can follow this process, the more peace you're going to feel. And the less that voice of, I shouldn't be here, I don't deserve to be here, the more that does get quiet. Because every time you're taking those new opportunities, every time you're rehearsing your pieces and then bringing them into the room or performing and doing your show at night and doing the cabaret that you put together, et cetera, you're quieting that voice and you're proving to yourself that you do belong, that you do have the skills necessary. You're proving it to yourself every time. Give yourself the opportunity to prove that to yourself and quiet that nagging voice that says you don't belong. You do. You do belong.
We hope this was helpful because life is too short not to do what you love. So I hope that these 2 points really help move you forward towards quieting that voice of imposter syndrome as you move forward in your journey.
If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and tag us on Instagram at BOA Vocal Coach. Share this episode with a friend, and please consider leaving us a review. And remember, our podcast listeners can save 15% off your registration in our Academy course with the code PODCAST15. If you're ready to take your next step, but you're not entirely sure what that should be, then we invite you to take our quiz. We'll strategize with you to outline a roadmap to your unique goals. Plus, from there, you can book a consult with us. Visit bwayvocalcoach.com/take the quiz. We can't wait to hear your story and help you take the next step in your career.